Hey guys, Jexi here. Welcome back to another video. Okay, so today's video is going to be really interesting. I saw a video on, I'm going to say butcher her name again, ML Lanzillotta, and her video is called Why I Support Prescribing Heroin for Addiction. Now, I watched this video and was like, wait, what? That sounds insane. So I left a comment and we're going to go through what I left. However, we had a really good conversation, and she provided me with sources that backed up her opinion. Sources that I didn't realize, and what some countries are doing as opposed to using methadone or Suboxone. There are countries that use heroin, medical grade heroin, for people who have a heroin problem. So I think the whole topic is really interesting. I want to give a huge thank you to ML Lanzillotta for she gave me permission to use clips from her video. She gave me a whole bunch of links to resources that backed up what she was saying. So I thought we can go through some of the things she says in her video. We can talk about some of these articles. Now, given none of them are like peer-reviewed journal articles, but again, it's because we're not talking about it in our country. It's being done in other countries. So I thought we can just kind of go through all this and talk about it and see, like, is this a real solution? I don't know. Thought it was interesting, and I think you guys will love this. So let's see what's going on. So before we go through some of her video and talk about some of the articles I found, it's important to remember a couple of things. One, apparently this is not a new idea, and it is something that's been done in other countries for quite some time. It is not something that is done in the US. It would take a lot before something like this actually got approval for the US, so I don't know if we'd ever see it here. Two, I'm not saying that this is what I feel is correct or what I think is okay or how I think we, do things. What I'm saying is that I think this is something that's worth discussing because it's a unique idea and something I had never heard of. Three, the clips I'm going to show you are from her edited video. When we started having a conversation, ML Lanzillotta and I started having a conversation, she refilmed it and did it a little bit more edited and put more links in her description. So my description box is going to be filled with a whole lot of links that she shared and then also to her videos. I'm going to link both her videos. I'm going to link a whole bunch of other stuff I found. So there's going to be like a lot of information that's going to be provided even beyond what we discussed. But I thought first we'd go through her video and just talk about that. And then after that, we can share some more details and more information about the actual topic as a whole and what I found online. So let's get into it.
Safe supply, also known as the British system because it was pioneered in 20th century Britain, is a program in which a person with addictions drug of choice is prescribed to them in a safe environment, like a doctor's office.
Okay, so she is correct. Safe supply programs expand harm reduction beyond supervised consumption and treatment services. They include distributing substances to users as alternatives to street-level drugs that may be contaminated with other additives such as fentanyl. And I'll put that up on the screen somewhere with the source. So yeah, so that is a thing. Safe supply is a program in where they give people safe alternatives to the street drugs that they would normally purchase.
It may seem strange to prescribe a drug someone is addicted to for their addiction, but decades of research has shown that it really can improve outcomes.
So when I watched this part of the video, I'm like, decades of research? What research? I've never heard anything like it. And that is part of the comment I left, which we'll go through later on her original video. And turns out there is some research. Probably not as much as we would generally like to see, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And we will go into that. But yeah, she's not wrong. There is research.
So while some people can take methadone or buprenorphine, those are only two medications, and not everyone can tolerate them, or not everyone can find success on them. Some people might have really bad side effects.
So I think there is a discussion to be had on whether medications like methadone or Suboxone are successful for people, and if they're not, why? And whether prescribing them their drug of choice in a pure form is the solution if those things don't work. Now, I understand if someone has a reaction or something like that, obviously that's different, but I do think that that's a larger discussion to be had, and we'll have that a little later on.
Safe stuff. So street heroin has tons of crap mixed in. You never know what you're getting because it's from the black market. It's not regulated the way medications are from a doctor's office or from a pharmacy. So
that's another really good point she makes. The dangers really with street drugs, specifically with heroin, is that you never know what's in it. And recently there's been a lot of fentanyl and carfentanil, which makes it significantly stronger and has led to the increase in overdose rates. And so by having something that's regulated and controlled, in theory, it would lead to less overdose deaths. But I'm still not quite certain how it helps with addiction. But we'll get there.
But when you get it from a doctor, when you get a medical grade amount, not only do you know what's in it and you know it's not poison, it's also generally cheaper.
Yeah, getting medication from a doctor is going to be safer because you know it's in it. And yeah, it is going to be cheaper. Prescription drugs are generally cheaper than buying drugs on the street for the most part, especially in countries that have a more socialized approach to medicine. However, I'm not sure yet that we can make the argument that it then follows that it's 100% safer for addicts, because keep in mind, a lot of the reasons that addicts who use heroin is because they started by taking prescription pain medication. So if that's where the road led, then how is prescribing heroin the answer? Again, I'm just bringing up these questions for us to talk about after because there is other information to discuss, but these are just my thoughts as I'm watching it.
When people are prescribed and just given a free dose, a free amount of free heroin or free Dilaudid when they need it, they don't have to deal drugs to pay for their habits. They don't have to commit crimes to pay for their habits. And so
now, this is something that I think is worth discussing, right? Because if we can keep addicts from dealing drugs, from committing crimes, then it has a much better economic impact, right? We are keeping society safer in turn. And also the cost of locking addicts up, we already know is astronomical, right? It's one of the reasons why we've decriminalized things like marijuana in a lot of places, because the cost on the taxpayer to lock up people for using marijuana has not been worth it, right? So there probably is a really good argument to be made that the economic impact of this safe supply is probably better for society as a whole. But I'm still not quite convinced whether it's better for the individual addict.
for their habits. And since the drug is administered regularly by a doctor, they can do things like get a job and build their life. And there are people who have been on these programs in Europe for decades, because Europe has had them since like the 1920s in some places. And when you just give someone the dose of their drug that they need, and they don't have to worry about getting the drug, they don't have to worry about making enough money through panhandling or petty crime or dealing to get the drug, they can really move on with their lives and be able to get a real job, be able to have a family, be able to secure stable housing and really build their lives. And it's fun.
So this is the part that led me to kind of question this whole idea, right? The idea that if you had a constant safe supply of your drug of choice, would you then be able to have a productive, happy, successful life? And I'm not so sure. See, the reason that medications like methadone and Suboxone have been successful in helping addicts have happy, productive lives is, one, they have found that there is a ceiling effect where you take a certain amount, you're not feeling high, right? And they're long acting. So you take something like Suboxone one time a day, maybe 12, whatever it is, and it will let you feel stable throughout the whole day. Now, in general, medications or drugs like heroin are short acting. Many opiates are short acting, in which case your need for more, your tolerance for it goes up. You'll need more to feel that high. And also, if we're keeping addicts high, are they really able to do these things, or are they fooling themselves? So I'm not really sure, and this is where I really started to question this idea and why I think more research on my end would need to be done to have a discussion, right? Is how is just giving addicts a constant supply? Like, for example, take somebody who has, let's say, sorry, I gotta shift. Let's say they have a whole lot of money, right? Like they have unlimited cash flow and they can get their drugs from a place that they know what's in them. Does that then in turn mean that this person is never going to have any problems? I don't know, because addiction does have long-term health effects. It has a lot of other impacts on the brain. And we know because of long-term studies with methadone and Suboxone that those drugs actually help promote the healing of a brain after having opiate addiction. So my question would then be, is taking your drug of choice in a stable manner contributing to the damage being done to your brain, or is somehow getting a safer dose of these drugs also contributing to the healing of the brain? It was something that didn't really make a lot of sense to me.
Build their lives, and it's fine because they don't have to worry about overdoses, they don't have to worry about the cost of the drug, and so suddenly their lives are so much easier. They don't commit crimes.
So again, I do see how this works out, right? If you do not have to panhandle, if you do not have to spend your own money, and you're able to get your drug of choice for free from a safe place, that it would in turn be a safer option for an addict, and it would also be more economically sound. But again, I think that there's something to be said for, is it helping somebody with their addiction problem? And that I'm not so sure about. Okay, so she pretty much from there just sums up her points, and I think they've been made very clear, and I do think it leads to a lot of interesting discussion. So first, I want to read the comments I left on her original video before she re-edited it, and this is what I wrote. I said, the problem with that is heroin is short-acting, and people tend to need more and more to feel stable. The safer option is Suboxone or methadone, as both are long-acting and have been shown that increases in doses aren't necessary to keep someone stable. I'm not sure medical heroin would be a realistic long-term option for someone. I do know that what you're talking about, and there is data that shows that overdose rates significantly decrease, but would have to see studies to believe that a short-term opioid is a realistic option for safe long-term use. And she replied and said, are you sure you aren't mistaking fentanyl for heroin? In my experience, heroin lasts a very long time. Also, one's tolerance doesn't increase forever. I know people, primarily in Canada, though also in Europe, who have been on Dilaudid or morphine or diamorphine or some other maintenance program for years, and they're perfectly stable. Prescription opioids are what keeps them stable enough to work and function. And I said, although heroin may feel like it lasts a long time, it is considered short-acting. The same goes for fentanyl, Dilaudid, and many prescription pain medications. In fact, most heroin addicts start with prescription pills, but eventually they end up needing more as their tolerance increases. Even the literature included with these medications is required to disclose this. It's why methadone was created. Many studies show that long-term prescription opioids actually have long-term negative consequences, and why many doctors have started prescribing Suboxone to non-addicts that are long-term pain patients. If you have studies that back up what you're saying, I would be very interested in reading them. I'm always willing to accept that information changes as more studies are done. So she sent me a bunch of links, and I said, thank you for sharing this. It's super interesting. I may do a video. Then she let me know she made an edited video and I'm allowed to use clips from it. I said, thanks so much. And I definitely will check the description box for things she sent. So with that being said, I now think we need to discuss a couple things like moving forward. So moving again, sorry. All right. So I think that this video is going to need to be in a second part. I think the second part of this is actually going through the research. I don't think a couple of days is enough time for me to really read through all of the descriptions that are out there. You know, I want to make sure that I'm getting the best information. So I am going to do a part 2 to this where we dissect the information. But here's the couple of things to think about. One, these types of programs have been used in other countries, to my surprise, and have seen success. That's well documented in many countries. Canada, in Europe, which is obviously more than one country. I think Switzerland. There's a whole bunch of places where this has been very, very successful. So obviously there has to be some numbers that show why it is successful. So I'm interested to look more into that, and I am going to do further research, and so I can present that information to you. Two, the other question I have is how is prescribing heroin going to help with the damage done to the brain after addiction? We know from many studies that have been done that addiction, specifically opioid addiction, does cause brain damage. And medications like methadone and Suboxone, as you can see, I'll link the video here. I think it's on this side. I never know when it's filming. That I did about maintenance medications that show that the studies done about methadone, Suboxone, and even naloxone show, which like the Vivitrol shot, show that by being on those medications for I think a year, actually significantly decreases your chance of relapse and also increases the ability for the brain to heal itself. And so we know those medications are helpful for opiate addicts. But are those same studies done in return talking about maintenance heroin? Because here's my issue. Prescription pain medication is very addictive, and just by nature of how it is, your tolerance for it increases, which means that you need more and more to feel that high. Now, are we talking stable doses of heroin? I don't know. The specific drug, it's not heroin, it's like diamorphine or something. Again, we'll go into more details about the studies, but I'm interested to see why a drug of choice being safely administered would be different than giving somebody, let's say, Oxycontin for a long period of time. Because we do know people who have taken Oxycontin for a significant length of time who have ended up turning to heroin because of their tolerance increasing. And therefore, it's not generally seen as a safe option. And so many pain patients now are actually being prescribed Suboxone because Suboxone has been shown to help with pain. Because keep in mind, in case you don't know this, prescription painkillers don't actually help with pain. They trick your brain into thinking you're not in pain. And so Suboxone works on those same receptors, and it's shown to be safer and it lasts longer. Your tolerance doesn't increase, right? So I think it's a really interesting conversation. This conversation also goes along with the idea of like safe needle sites, which I actually am for, but we'll do a whole video on that as well. But I never considered the idea that giving somebody their drug of choice could be a safer option. Do I believe that it is? I don't know. Everything about what I know about addiction tells me that that's a terrible plan. But everything I know about addiction tells me that decriminalizing all drugs is a terrible plan. However, there's been plenty of studies that shows that that's actually a way to lower addiction. So sometimes what we know about things isn't really accurate. And it's important that we accept that information is always changing, specifically around addiction, and that the ideas that we may have may be tainted by our own experiences. And that it's important to understand that we aren't doctors or scientists or medical providers, right? And so we may not have the best, most accurate information. There may be stuff out there that works, that sounds crazy to us. But if it's working and helping people. So I think really the research I am going to do, the thought I'm having is I can 100% believe that it is safer for the individual and that it is cheaper both for the individual and economically. I don't think there's any argument about that. Getting a drug from a reliable source is going to be safer. It's going to lead to less overdoses. It's going to be cheaper for the person. The person is not going to blow all their money if they can get it for free from their doctor, right? I 100% believe it is safer, better option for people than buying drugs off the street. No doubt about that. It's also going to be better for the economy. It's going to be cheaper as opposed to locking people up with police, all this stuff, right? Like 100% get all that. What I am not sure about and what I'm interested to do more research about and will report back to you in a part 2 is doing a prescription type of heroin, does that help somebody with their addiction, or does it just keep them safer while they're using? Does that make sense? Right? Because the idea with addiction is we want to get them into a recovery-based life where they're not reliant on being high. So does this solution actually help with that, or does this just keep them high in a safer way? And so that is going to be what we discuss in part 2, which will follow this video, in a few days. So let me know what you think. Did you know about this, or does this sound insane to you like it does to me? I also, once again, want to give a huge thank you to ML Lanzillotta for allowing me to respond to some of her videos. Look, she's got some really progressive ideas about addiction, and I think they're worth discussing, right? The more dialogue we have about these issues, the more we learn. And learning more about addiction and about drug use in general is going to be helpful to society as a whole. I don't think we should ever stop listening, and we should always question people's ideas. You guys should question my ideas. Do your own research. Ask people for sources. That's how we learn. So let me know what you think. Also, check out the sources. I'm going to link a whole bunch of stuff, a lot of which I'm going to be reading for part 2. So if you want to prep yourself to have some sort of discussion for part 2, read the sources. Let me know what you think. And leave a comment. Tell me your thoughts. I need to know. Also, if you're not subscribed to this channel, please subscribe. It helps me out so much. We are so close to 1,000 subscribers. I cannot even believe it. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Leave a comment. Follow me on Discord. I have a Patreon. I have all that stuff in the description box below. I really, really look forward to hearing from you about this topic. So talk to you guys soon. Bye, everyone.